We now come on to the first of the two, what I would say, main choices that black has after our bishop c4 move. And these are probably the moves that are a little bit more challenging than the Philidor, the moves that your opponent may have prepared, because in the last chapter, certainly none of those suggestions that we saw black play would be recommended anywhere, because they're rubbish. If they are recommended, it's a blooming bad book or course. Probably. I'm going to regret saying that now when Magnus Carlsen brings out his course on the Philidor and recommends it. Oh, well, what can we do? So the first option after bishop c4 against the Philidor is knight to f6. And originally, I have to admit, well, when I saw this move, I just thought, hang on a minute, this can't be a good move because of knight g5. Let me just get there. Excuse me. And I just thought, well, you can't even put the knight there. And I expect a lot of people will think the same, that they can't go knight f6 because knight g5, and whoopsie daisy. But funnily enough, in this position, black's not doing too badly, because black has to play d5. And now we obviously don't waste any time, which we're not doing throughout this course. So we take on d5. And after we capture on d5, of course, he does not play knight takes d5, because now he's a tempo down. Well, I mean, maybe this is playable. This is actually, if you think about it, the knight on c6, this is the fried liver, right? So it must be a good version of the fried liver, with black having one less tempo. We talk about the fried liver a lot. Let me just show you what it is. The fried liver is this opening here with d5. And we take and takes here. So we're actually, funnily enough, we're getting in our system a little bit of a version of that. But after d5 takes, there is one advantage that black has here. And the advantage is that the knight on c6 is now not attacked, correct? So we're not attacking that one. So black can now actually play h6. We're not recommending this line, by the way, because we couldn't find anything for white in this position. And even though this is playable, we haven't got an aggressive follow-up. Our knight has to really retreat, and it's a totally different ball game. So, when I first saw this idea, this is what I assumed would be good, but then I just sort of, oh yeah, hang on a minute, black can actually get out of this, and this is why maybe a very well-prepared player might try this knight f6. Now, our main move is d4. Surprise, surprise. No surprise, it should be even. Because we don't care about the pawn if we're going to open up the middle and checkmate. Boom! Another gambitier's choice is actually castles here. But we're going to stick with d4. This is our numero uno choosio oneio. And this is actually a surprisingly rare move at this position, because I honestly think a lot of these games you don't get at high levels, so they haven't been analysed that much. But maybe at club level, you're more likely to see this. I mean, players with the white pieces will probably play knight c3 here, and this allows the black line. And what I mean by that is, at some point, well, black's got the extra tempo. Again, he has to be careful playing here because of knight here, but it's not as troublesome. So he might be able to get that black line set up with something like h6 here, something like this, possibly. Even this is very dangerous, but it's maybe playable. But with d4, we're not giving him space to breathe. And we're immediately going, and it's a rare move, and surprisingly rare. Now, which pawn does black capture? And I think he must capture a pawn here, because if he doesn't, we're just going to continue coming forwards anyway in the position. And let's just remind you, this one now is not possible because of knight g5. And what else can he play unless he captures a pawn? This one just loses a pawn. Knight c6 is never a move that black wants to play in these positions. And here, we just take here. And when we take here, he has to move his king. So he has to take something. So we're forcing him into a sharp line, which might just take him by surprise, completely by surprise. Now, which pawn are we going to look at first in this position? Well, I think we will look first of all at knight takes e4. Grabbing this pawn. Maybe this is the main choice to look at, because in the other variation where they take on d4, well, of course, we're sacrificing a pawn there as well. We'll come to that in a minute. And just to remind you, when they do take here, the little rule to bear in mind is we can actually really like queen takes if it's not met by knight c6. So let's say that knight's already on d7. Why do we like queen takes? Because our queen is actually very nice in the center. It can't get kicked around. And our knight here supports e5. And we just actually develop the queen in a safe way. But in these kind of positions, queen takes is not as good. So we take him with the knight here, offering the pawn again. But first of all, what happens if black takes here? Well, funnily enough, now we go d takes e5, and maybe the more observant of you out there might now realize what's happened. We're into the Petrov. Did you see that? Hopefully you saw that, because we've covered the Petrov already. And this is actually a good Petrov in the variation we're playing. So everything's kind of connected with this course. And you should get crossovers, which is nice. Let me just show you what we mean here. So the Petrov is here. Our recommended move is taking here. I better get this right now. Knight takes here, pawn takes here. And the main two moves that we've really analysed are these guys. But if he plays this move, it's a lot of a weaker choice. We're into the transposition here. I always get the Petrov. I'm even doing it now. Petrov and this opening, the names mixed up. It's that dyslexia coming back. Oh no. And now that I'm trying to think of the name of this opening, you're probably screaming it at home. Oh my words, why can't I remember it? Oh, Simon, don't do this to me. The Petrov, and what are we looking at? I know we're looking at this black line. I said it earlier even. Well, okay, it will come to me. Oh God, I'm so annoyed now. I'm so annoyed that it's not just on the tip of my tongue, but it's not important anyway. I'll remember it later on. You're probably screaming at the computer. There you go. You got one up on GM. Well, let's just have a look at this. I have to think about that. So knight takes e4, and this is, oh my words. Okay, the Petrovs where they do that. Okay, now excuse me. I'm going to bring this up because I'm annoyed now. The Philidor. Oh, Simon. The Philidor. I knew it was started with P and I forgot it. Philidor. Okay, great. I didn't know that. So we're going to go into that Petrov position with this move. And here, well, we did have a quick glance at C6 in that Petrov chapter, but I thought I'd look at it more in a little bit more here. We don't need to look at it too much because it's not a very good line for black. This knight takes e4. Before we move over to that, knight c5 is an idea that I mentioned in that Petrov line to try and swivel that knight around. And it's aimed to try to block our bishop out with something coming to e6. And I think the best move here is, again, to open up lines immediately. Because when we take on d6, and remember, the whole idea, of course, is to open up lines, but we want to do it on our terms. But the thing is here, I like this move because the natural capture, bishop takes d6, is actually quite bad because of bishop g5. And this bishop g5 move, a lovely move that we flick in. And after bishop g5, black has to make some concession. If he moves the f-pawn, he can't castle. If he moves the bishop, well, you know what? We can actually just take everything off with one of those better endings because his king's on d8, right? And that's horrible. I mean, you know, this kind of position is going to be very pleasant. If he takes the bishop, if he takes the king, we might as well go here and castle. And if he takes the bishop, you can see what's happening here. Look at our development. We could grab a pawn. We could even just develop and castle, both rooks zooming. Zoomies. That's what Charlie the chess cat does sometimes. Zoomies. Around the room when he's hyper. So this is why we're taking on d6 at this moment, because we're forcing a concession whilst opening the position. Clearly, pawn takes is just a bad structure for black. Not a good move at all. So queen takes has to be played. And now we just go queen e2 check. we're not in a rush to take that queen. Our argument is that that queen is exposed. If black tries to get the queens off, then in this case, swapping queens doesn't make as much sense because we don't have that development advantage. I prefer the much more aggressive move, bishop e3, because with this move, I'm asking the queen on e7, what are you doing there? You're blocking the bishop in, but what are you actually doing? I don't see the point to you. And we're just going to go knight c3, castles queenside, knight d5, blah, 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 blah. So here, bishop e7 has to be played. And now I think just the simple move, knight c3. And you can see this has these strong ideas of attacking these pieces. And again, this is quite like those Petrov lines where black goes to the symmetrical pawn structure, but his pieces are so bad. And I think black has to waste a move with c6. And now castles, castles. And again, it's symmetrical, but our pieces are so much better. We can take over the e file, forcing bishop f6. And now, because we got this initiative, we want to keep the pressure on rather than playing some slow moves. I mean, you can play slowly here, move this last piece with the idea of rook here, but an even stronger move is knight g5. And this is threatening knight f7 and queen e8, which is really pretty horrible. Our queen has a way in, and we're also threatening the simple move of moving a knight here. So I think black would have to take this, but this is horrible for black. Bishop e7, rook d1, sleepy, sleepy pieces. Yeah, so it's a little bit tricky for black if he takes on e4. This is a bad move. We're not even sacrificing actually here. We're taking here, and he can't play knight c5 because this is just strong. So he has to try c6. He has to try and play the pawn to d5, getting that hold in the middle. So of course we challenge that knight. Now again, taking here is an option, but in this case black can take with a bishop now, and that seems to help black. And if we castle, for example, we allow black to do what he wants to do by pushing on with d5. And that also is something we don't want to allow our opponent to easily plug his holes if we can help it. So the most challenging move is to do something, challenge that knight with knight bd2. And now knight takes d2 looks like the most obvious. d5, the move he wants to play, is a mistake because we now take here. He probably has to take our bishop because this diagonal. And now queen e2, and again, we don't mind giving up the bishop if we're going to get something tangible. And what I mean by that, it's not actually tangible, it's time. Time is a non-tangible asset, or whatever you can call it, but we're getting time in return. So it's an intangible asset, but it's still a very nice asset. We're gaining time, and we have 3 pieces developed here. Something like bishop e6, and because we have this development, it's no surprise we can start coming in and even playing ideas with e6 here. And that knight coming to e6. Fantastic stuff here. So d5 is a mistake. What about knight c5 again? This might not be so bad. It's been played by Grandmaster Chernaev. Because now taking on d6 again is not really what we want because the bishop takes. So we may only have a small advantage, but I feel it's still an advantage. And here I think castling is correct. It's a pity to allow black to play d5, but, you know, as the Rolling Stones have told us, we can't always get what we want. But we can still get a small advantage with bishop e2. Well, my singing career is not there, is it? And here, what's our plan now? Well, again, our development is much better. And one of the standard plans with the pawn on e5 that you see in the Petrov sometimes, in other openings we come across, we have the pawn majority, 4 versus 3. And it's often a good idea to look at your pawn majority and use it. And it goes back to some philosophy we've said earlier on, which is in this course, we're mainly using our pieces when the pieces can work well. But in this particular position, it's a little bit more closed than our normal structures. I'd say it's a semi-closed position or semi-open. It's not open because there's some blockage here. It's not closed because there's clearly some open lines. And in that kind of position, you might need to use your pawns because pieces on their own might not be able to break through any blockade. So that's why I'm recommending here some ideas when knight d4 and then using the f-pawn. Imagine if you could get that position with your knight on that square with your pawn there. That'd be tremendous. So bishop e7, and we could even play this now. It's quite an unchallenged move, but white did get an advantage in this game, Stella versus Chernyaev, with knight b3. That knight was blocking things up, so why not try to get rid of that piece? So white is still using his pieces maximum at the moment. And after castles here, white played an interesting idea, and he now uses another pawn. And this is something we've seen quite often when black thinks he's stabilized there. c4. And again, white's extra space here and pressure against this pawn gives him an advantage. Very rare line, but white is doing well. Remember, we can even play on both areas of the board, attacking that area with something along the lines of bishop e3 here. So knight c5, not so bad, but obviously white's better. And after knight takes d2, we take with the bishop, clearly. And now d5. Bad time to have a coughing fit. No, it's not COVID. I've got a tickly throat. Is just bishop d3, the best square for the bishop. Yeah, I don't think white can complain about this position at all. We've got a handy lead in development, 3 pieces against 0. This happened a game, Hansen-Pedersen, 1994. And we've got c4 break at the right moment. We got Greek gift ideas if black castles too soon. And we got just a nice, easy game. Let's have a look at bishop e7. Now, against bishop g4, our standard approach is this h3, which I'm sure you're aware about. In this case, if black takes here, there's not as much, reason to take with the g-pawn, because we're only doing that before to chase that knight away. I'll just take with the queen here. Castle queenside. The queen sits very nicely on g3 and these structures attacking the king. And if bishop h5, we don't need to rush g4, but we have that as an option. And here, I would go queen e2, keeping things open. And now I probably would play g4. And after bishop g6, bishop f5 is a nice move. Because black can't really ever take this one because our pawns become strong. And we're castling, and we're going to use our h-pawn. And black is in trouble here. So bishop e7 is better. Bishop g4 is quite normal, though. Your opponent might play that. And again, I like this move, queen e2. There's no reason to commit our king this way, because if we did commit our king this way, that last plan we saw loses power. So now bishop g4 is stronger, because if we go h3 and we go here, if we ever play this move, maybe we're still okay. But let's remember our king is over here, and it's a bit more exposed than we'd really like it to be. So queen e2 is better, keeping those things open, keeping those options open. What would you play against knight a6? And, well, I think if we just think, again, in that way we should always do when our opponent plays a move, because you can see we've got all these aggressive plans in this Gambit's course. But the thing is with these aggressive plans is they change depending what our opponent's doing. And clearly this knight wants to try and win one of our bishops. I quite like our bishops here. So I'm going to play c3 and give my bishop the c2 square. So knight c5, I'm going to keep that lovely bishop. You can understand why black does not want a castle here. If he does castle, we have a way in. So bishop g4 played, and now h3, and we've seen this before. In this case, we do that last plan. Can you remember the right plan that was played in that last game? It seems to work very well. g4, bishop g6, and what was the move? Bishop f5. This is a really strong piece that can't be taken. This maintains the tension, and we have this plan of forcing that bishop to capture our bishop. If that ever happens, look at those pawns there, with our knight coming to this lovely square. So that's just a nice, simple plan. So after this surprising move d4, I feel that black, if he's going to take there, is going to be struggling. So e takes d4 best, and now we go back to our plan. What do we take on d4 with? We kind of like to take with a queen, but knight c6 is possible here. So we're going to go knight takes. And in this position, the critical idea is knight takes e4. Now, we've actually seen these kind of positions with knight c6 earlier on in the course. When after knight c3, bishop e7, we castle. We did discuss these earlier on in the sidelines. I'll show you whereabouts, or the moves where you can probably find this. We discussed it here with black playing like ideas of either d6 or bishop e7 here. Do you remember we discussed it there? Hopefully you can. And against these moves, we got to this position. So we're not going to look at it again. You can look at those sidelines chapter here, but you don't need to spend a lot of time on such a position. I have to be honest. This is just a little bit better for white. I mean, maybe players who play the Philidor don't mind playing the structure, but not many players play the Philidor because of this structure. And we do, just to be fair, look at this structure in more detail in the next video. So don't worry, because I think this is the kind of thing you could well get. So we will come to this, but obviously it comes a little, in the next video. So, but really here, it's very easy to play. Develop your pieces, and later on you try to go f4, and you stop black from playing d5. Basic principles. But knight e4 is the only way to avoid those Philidor positions we come to in the next video. And now there's an obvious move here that has never been played in practice, which is quite stunning, which still shows us how much fertile ground for exploration there is in chess, especially in this free bishop c4 variation, why we've picked it. And the move that has never been played is just the simple pinning move, queen e2. I'm not going to bother showing you other variations. They're not so relevant, but this move causes black some problems immediately. And here, black can either go d5 or queen e7. Now, I expect d5 we would say is the main move because it looks most natural. But queen e7 has got a bit of an argument to be said for it. But let's remember, your opponent will start tanking time because everything here is, from this point on of this video, is novelties. It's never been analysed or played before. I don't know about analysed. Maybe it has been analysed somewhere that I don't know about or Richard doesn't know about, but it's never been played, as far as we can tell, in a competition game. And when we looked at this position, well, our initial thoughts were, this must be at least compensation for white, which still stands because black is going to now take 3 moves to get castled. And again, it's always counting how many moves it takes your opponent to get castled. That comes up a lot in this course to work out if our attacks can work. He has to move his queen, bishop, and king, right? It's not easy. Or pawn, bishop, and king. So we can just play castles kingside. And rook e1 is now becoming a threat when if the knight moves, we move our queen and we win the queen there. So now black has to move the knights. And there's 2 squares, knight f6 or knight c5. Now, knight c5, we play, and again, this is computer program helping us with the moves. We play a move which allows our rook to come to e1 as quickly as possible, because that seems to be the key point in this position, right? The open e file. Another way, you guys can always improve your thinking is what is the key aspect to the position in front of you, and how can I concentrate on that key aspect in a way which is going to improve my position? Well, here we don't want to exchange queens. Bishop e3 gives us some development advantage, but we're not pressurizing our opponent. And this course is about pressurizing opponent, not about playing lazy moves. And queen d1 has echoes of a line we're going to see a little bit later, because it allows us to defend this rook, and we don't want to block the bishop by putting the queen on d2. So let's say knight c6, rook e1, and now knight e6. And black is fairly solid here, I'm not going to lie, but he's very cramped. These two guys can't get out. So let's bring in more pieces, and this move is a very nice move here. It may look like we have to move this knight, but we don't, because knight d5 is a more critical move to get in the board. Black can't stop that one, so he may as well grab our knight, and now we see the point. The knight comes into this square, attacking the queen, hitting this one, so black's queen has to go back, and now the next point of this, queen takes d4. We finally get our queen to that square using the pin here. One idea is knight f4, where everything is trying to break through this one blockade. Another idea in this position is bishop h6. That's a fun move to play. So bishop e7 kind of, is the normal move. And here our queen is on pre, don't forget that. So we've got to move that one back. And this square I like because it keeps that pressure. Eventually, black can now castle, which I think he should do. And here black has defended, but we can keep the pressure up. There's no immediate tactics, but let's grab the bishop pair. And now just the b3 move. No immediate win here, but we have lasting and long compensation in this position. With the two bishops pointing at the king, black still has blockaded everything, but he's not doing anything active. And the ideas I'd be thinking of playing here is clearly bishop b2. And what do we do next? One of my favorites, rook e3, rook g3. This is the focal point of our attack, g7. If you're wondering what I mean by focal points, I talked about this a lot in my Art of Attack course. And yeah, we can even try attacking that focal point later on with our h-pawn. And our dark square bishop remains supreme in this structure, and it remains giving us certainly enough compensation. This is the kind of position where you could say, well, okay, it's not better though. Black's it might not be better. I can't even remember what the computer assesses here. We have checked it. I'd imagine the computer gives us about equal, and that could be the case. Maybe black can defend here, but it's much easier for white to play. And one thing we've done in all of these lines where maybe it is just equal, I say all of these lines, there's not that many, is give you positions where your opponent's going to struggle. Even bishop here and queen takes g7 is a nice idea, right? Let's just show that. Let's say something like this. This is a nice idea I've just seen. It might even be a strong, there's an even stronger idea. Let me just show you these little ideas that just occurring to me now. But actually, an even stronger idea. Can we do this? Okay, it doesn't quite work, but you get the gist of where I'm coming from here. So to go back, knight c5 is interesting, but knight to f6, this is all new stuff. Let's remember that. And in this position, I actually think queen f3 is the way we go, because here we've now seen the knights there, and with the bishop coming to g5, it just seems like the right place to put the queen. Saying that, queen d1 again is not stupid, but it might give our opponent a chance to sort of get out of trouble. But we're going to stick with queen f3 here, and we got normal active moves. We're just going to bring these sleepy ones in to the position and take the e-file. It looks horrendous for black. Black should now try putting a piece on this square. And now we have come up with a fiendish idea. I mean, without the knight coming there, what does black play? I think this is correct. And now, only now, do we play a fiendish idea. And I think this is actually quite amazing. Only now do we go here. Why have we lost a tempo? Well, we've lost the tempo because this knight, which was aiming for there, it would rather be back on b8 because it's just getting in the way of black's pieces. Black wants bishop e6 to cover this one. Black doesn't want the knight there. the knight can't really safely come here. I mean, I don't know what else can be played here. And there's no good way to stop this rook coming to e1. So this is a fiendish idea, definitely. Up, down, round, back. Now, knight to e5, I think is correct. Knight c5 can be tried, and we're going to go rook e1. And this is quite similar to that last line. I would keep the aggression up here. Bishop g5, knight f5, keep them coming in. And now knight to d2 or to f one of the squares, maybe here. And there's one more nice idea I want to show you. It looks like black's getting out of it, but because of our development advantage, we have time to play queen f3. The pressure is mounting. If black grabs the piece there, knight to e4. And with rook d1 coming, we may be a piece down, but look at our pieces. Wow, they are just swarming over this position here. And black is crumbling. And the other idea is black moving a knight to e5, as we saw. This is his idea, but we now have this break. So we play rook e1, and this is not easy to counter. If you go bishop e6, we can take this one, play f4. Black has castles as his last trick, taking, but now we aim to block the d-file with knight d2. And that knight will have to make way for knight e6 with a crushing knight in the middle of the board there. Spider knight. Spider knight. Could be an interesting program. Bishop g4, probably a better try because that last line is really bad. But now let's gain a tempo. And here, bishop h5, natural, runs into simply knight c3. I would like to mention that actually c6 is a bizarre idea here. I don't think it works in this position, does it? No. So bishop h5 has to be played. Yes, of course, this has to be played first. Now we play knight c3. We're just going back to developing. Main idea, bishop g5, knight here. Once we developed our bishop, we will move our queen and go f4. We don't have to worry about this one because of the pin. Black castles. And now, well, okay. Which square do we move it to? They've both got something to be said. Let's go f4, getting that one out. Black now has got these guys in the game, especially that bishop. Queen d7, and our bishop now is attacked. So let's just drop it back to f1. And again, certainly enough compensation. I would now start doing the standard pawn storm because we know where the target is. In these types of position, being a pawn down doesn't matter, because it's going to be who checkmates first. So I'm just going to throw these ones up the board. Maybe black is just about, again, okay in these positions, but white's attack, much easier to play. Oof. So after queen e2, now instead of queen e7, d5 is the other option. And here we can play knight d2. And the reason we're not putting it on c3 is because then black is allowed to pin our knight. If we go to d2, we have pawn to c3 against that same move. And this is forcing an exchange of pieces, because black is really, now he has to take that bishop. And some interesting little options here. I don't think he's got anything else, because otherwise we are just grabbing this one. We're going to take on e4, and look at this tricky position that black is facing here. He can't take our knight, mate in 2. We've got very dangerous knight here. And we can go knight f6, queen e8, checkmate. Might trick a couple of people in blitz games. Bishop b4, we go c3. If he tries to castle here, I wouldn't get involved, with anything that allows this one or something here. So I think we should castle. And now that bishop is going to have to move. And he's managed to get his king safe in this line, but with bishop f4 to come, again, we have very, very adequate compensation with our accelerated pieces. So bishop e7, I feel, is a bit safer, as the bishop's going to go there anyway. I don't really see why this move is going to be played. And now, actually, I think we can grab this pawn in this line. black does get castled, and he should get castled. And here, bishop f4, and we've got this amusing placement of 4 pieces here. And if we're given a chance, we will castle kingside. So maybe black should try c5, an interesting gambit line, because actually he could be in trouble once we castle. We've got so good development. Our knights are fantastic. We're not a pawn down now, though. And I think we can even grab this pawn. Black's idea can now be bishop g5. And I don't think he can completely equalize after knight e2. And let's say bishop takes, queen takes here, queen a5, and b4. Queen a5 doesn't work. So tricky lines these for black, and even though after bishop c4, knight c6 has been tried, the surprisingly rare move d4 seems to cause black some serious issues in these ones, unless he goes to the calmer waters where he just tries to get developed. If he grabs this pawn at any stage, we should have a smile on our faces because our initiative is grand. So nice idea there. And again, this line I think kind of plays itself. We've gone over some kind of things to remember, but the basic thing to remember in these lines is you're castling quickly, or you're going queenside and you're just developing. You've got to adapt a little bit to your opponent's moves. I suppose e takes is the better line. And against knight e4, we've got this new move, queen e2. And queen e2 is a new move, has some tactical points. And do remember, after queen e7 castles, this idea in a lot of positions, when our queen moves, we're coming to d1. So we can basically control e1 so our rook can line up along that attractive file there.